so important to know about the management of inguinal lymph nodes? Because it is the most important prognostic factor in CFNS. It it is ultimately the determinant of survival in these patients. So the presence and the extent of the Mets to the inguinal region are the most important prognostic factor in CFNS. And it has been found that lymphadenectomy can be curative, and hence it should be performed when it is indicated. We'll look at the indications soon. A lot of discussion goes on about how to decide which patient should undergo lymphadenectomy or not. So basically, you have to understand that there are two things. One, whether the lymph node is palpable or not. Okay, and the other thing is whether the other thing is what is the primary tumor histopathological factor. So primary tumor histopathology, based on various histopathological factors like lymphovascular invasion, perineural invasion, and there are various other factors that can be considered. The classification of these tumors is done into high risk and low risk. Even in low risk, there are two types, very low and low. So what I want to tell you is, once you get a case of penile carcinoma, okay, let's suppose there is a lesion in the glans, some 2.5 centimeter sized, and lymph node is palpable. So what would be the management of inguinal lymph nodes? It is straightforward. You have to do an inguinal lymph node dissection. That's it. Why? Because because the lymph nodes are palpable. Okay. That is the first factor. So generally, when you have a palpable inguinal lymph nodes, we always go for lymphadenectomy. There are ifs and buts here and there, but mostly you do a lymphadenectomy. Though, so for palpable lymph nodes, lymphadenectomy. That is straightforward. For non-palpable groin, okay, we have to look into the primary tumor histopathology and divide the tumor into low risk, very low risk, or high risk. Okay, so TIS, TA, all these are in the low risk group, whereas very low risk, T1A will be in low risk also, but T1B onwards, that is the intermediate grade, will be in high risk. So with higher risk, we go for, even if the groin is negative, if there is no palpable lymph node, we go for a lymph node dissection. So low risk, we have TIS, TA, T1, G1. The incidence of positive inguinal lymph nodes is very less. It is 0 to 16%. So watchful waiting is recommended. But if it is palpable, then you do an inguinal biopsy and you follow it by the management appropriate for the clinical scenario. What does this mean? So suppose inguinal biopsy is positive, then you go for a ipsilateral inguinal lymph node, ilioinguinal lymph node dissection along with pelvic lymph node dissection, or a contralateral superficial lymph node dissection. You might be getting confused with all this terminology, but I will make sure that you understand. Okay. Right now, just concentrate on these two things: low risk, high risk. Okay. So, before heading on to the more the surgical aspect of inguinal lymph node dissection, we need to understand how the penile lymphatics, uh, how are the penile lymphatics distributed, and how does the penile cancer spread. It initially goes to the inguinal lymph nodes, and then it goes to the distant sites. So this is the route. From the penile lymphatics, it goes to the superficial inguinal lymph nodes. From there, it goes to the deep inguinal lymph nodes, and then to the iliac lymph nodes. And at the symphysial region, that is at the pubic symphysis, it can metastasize to both the sides, to the contralateral inguinal lymph node also. Because, so let's say suppose initially right is involved, like right groin, but a left groin contralateral crossover is crossovers happen at the symphysis region. So contralateral involvement may be present in spite of the fact that the groin is negative. Okay, but what we need to know is drainage does not skip these levels. Okay, we can get skip meds in testicular cancer, but we generally do not get skipping in this. So hence the penile lymphatic or the inguinal lymphadenectomy is planned in such a way that if superficial is positive, we go for deep and iliac lymph node dissection. If superficial is not, then we do not do a deep dissection or a deep lymphadenectomy. Again, we'll come to that later, but drainage does not skip levels in inguinal lymph node for penile carcinoma. So all this in this slide are potential MCQs, each and every line. And this, when I gave the NEET exam in 2016, I'm sorry, in 2017, this was a question which they asked, how are the superficial and deep groups separated based on, and the answer is fascia lata. So the superficial inguinal lymph nodes will be around 4 to 25 number, deep can be 1, 2, 3, like 1, 2, or 3 variable. So superficial group and deep group are separated anatomically by the fascia lata. And the most cephaloid node in the deep group is the node of Cloquet, which is situated between the femoral vein and the lacunar ligament. All these inguinal, obturator, hypogastric, all these nodes, they drain into the extrailiac group, and from this they then drain into the common iliac and then into the para-aortic. This is how the lymphatic drainage occurs. So let's say you have a case of penile carcinoma. First there will be involved the inguinal lymph nodes. From the inguinal lymph nodes, it then goes to the external, and then into the common iliac, and then into the para-aortic. Now we focus our understanding on the superficial inguinal lymph nodes. Superficial inguinal lymph nodes are divided into 5 groups. Okay, 5 groups. First group is the central group, which is located at the saphenofemoral junction. So this is a saphenous vein. Okay, this is a femoral vein. So somewhere here, this group is the central group, central nodes. Okay, then you have something known as superolateral. Superolateral around the superficial circumflex iliac vein. This is a superficial circumflex iliac vein. So just to get more, I want you to get oriented. So this is the medial aspect of the body. This is the lateral aspect of the body. Somewhere here is the ASIS. This is the pubic tubercle here. So this is the inguinal ligament. Okay. This from the ASIS is running the sartorius muscle, and this is the adductor longus. Adductor longus is somewhere here. So this is the superficial circumflex iliac vein. This is on the lateral aspect, and so here we have a superolateral group. Okay. Then similarly downwards we have an inferolateral group, which is around the lateral cutaneous vein, or you can say lateral femoral cutaneous vein. Then on the medial aspect, similarly up and down. Above we have the superomedial group around the superficial external pudendal vein and superficial epigastric vein. So over here, somewhere here lies the group of lymph nodes, which are superomedial group. Superomedial has a very important role, and they are considered to be the sentinel nodes. So they are considered to be the sentinel nodes, but it is variable. I mean, what I mean to say is that there is something known as sentinel node biopsy, which is also practiced in breast and in breast also. So as Cabana described it for breast, similarly he described for CA penis that he suggested that the superior middle group of lymph nodes is a sentinel group. That is if this node is involved, then only the other lymph nodes might be involved. This theory or this understanding was later proven to be wrong, or maybe not wrong actually, because but it was not practiced, is not now is not practiced anymore because of the high false negative rates, because you can, because the actually the lymphatic involvement in penile carcinoma is variable. There is if even if the superomedial group is not involved, you can have other group involvement also, and the inferomedial group is around the greater Stephanus vein. So you have 5 groups: central, two lateral, and two lateral and two medial. This is a picture, a nicer picture, demonstrating the same. So these are the two lateral groups, these are the two medial groups, and there somewhere is the central group. Now we come to the management of very low risk and low intermediate risk groups. So I need you to concentrate on this part of the chart first. So here is, so this is the histopathology of the primary tumor. So what happens is, the patient comes with a primary tumor, you do a edge-wedge biopsy, you look at the biopsy, you confirm that it is a carcinoma, and then you do a resection. It can be anything. It can be a glans preserving surgery, it can be a penile amputation, it can be partial or total or whatever. Then you get this histopathology. This histopathology, based on the final tumor, final histology, you grading is done, whether it is TIS, TA, T1A, T1B, and so on and so forth. Let's suppose first that it is TIS or TA. This is a very low group, very low risk group. Okay. So in very low risk group, now next thing which you have to see, whether the examination of lymph nodes, what is the examination of physical examination of lymph nodes suggestive of, whether the groin is having palpable lymph nodes or not. Let's say the groin is having the no lymph nodes palpable, then you observe. Okay, TIS, TA, groin is negative, you observe. But if it is positive, then that is a groin is positive, then we give 4 weeks of antibiotics. Even after this, if adenopathy persists, we do an FNAC, which can be done ultrasound guided or CT guided. Once FNAC is done, if FNAC is positive, you go for ipsilateral inguinal and pelvic node dissection and contralateral superficial inguinal lymph node dissection. I repeat, if FNAC is positive, you go for an ipsilateral inguinal, which includes a superficial group of lymph nodes and the deep lymph nodes, as well as a pelvic lymph node. So that side complete resection is done. Because FNAC is positive and there is evidence of lymph node involvement, you do so. And we know that at the symphyseal level, there is crossover happening of the lymphatics. So the lymphatics can cross from that side. So you need to do a contralateral superficial inguinal dissection with the provision of frozen. If frozen comes positive, that's the opposite side also has to be done completely. That is, you have to convert into a radical inguinofemoral lymph node dissection, which will include a deep also and the pelvic also, like the other side. But if it is negative, if suppose your FNAC is negative, you do an excisional biopsy, because you might miss FNAC is not completely viable. So you need to do an excisional biopsy, which if again is positive, you go for a definitive surgery. If it is negative, you observe. So you need a double negative in case of if adenopathy persists after 4 weeks of antibiotics. What I want to tell here is this aspect is challengeable. Okay, I don't know why, but this Campbell continues to mention the role of antibiotics, whereas all guidelines, right from EAU and NCC and everywhere, antibiotics are no more considered. But since you are, we consider that your paper mostly will come from Campbell, I believe you should stick on to this. There are some few glaring mistakes even in this chapter, which I'll come. This is not a mistake. This is just a slightly different idea which they want to propose, and I expected that things might change with the new edition, but they stuck on to this, concept of 4 weeks of antibiotics. But this is not fully wrong. I mean, nothing is lost by 4 weeks. So this can still be followed. And I believe that if you get a question asking what should be the management of a lymph node in a TISTA positive palpable, then you should, if it is, what is the initial management, and it should be antibiotics, because what this is what Campbell says, because there is a reference at your level at least. Now, suppose this initial tumor which you had, that the penis had has a lesion, has a primary histology of group staging of T1A. Then we have to see whether the lymph nodes are palpable or not. If the lymph nodes are not palpable, then again you observe. This is similar. Okay, you observe. Just like here, you observe. But if this is positive, then there is no role of antibiotics here. You do an FNAC. Okay, you do an FNAC which can be ultrasound guided or CT guided. If it is positive, again you do the same thing. If it is negative, then again you have to do an excisional biopsy, which is again positive. You go for the definitive resection of lymph nodes with the contralateral superficial. And but if it is negative, you observe. Okay, I hope everyone has got this. So suppose the patients do not undergo lymphadenectomy. Okay, I just concentrate on here this aspect. So how do they follow up? You follow up with that is, you have a groin, you have a negative groin. There are no palpable lymph nodes in a low risk group, that is TIS, TA, and T1A. Then what do? Is you follow it up 3 monthly in the first 2 years, because maximum recurrences occur in the first 2 years, and then 6 monthly for the next 2 years, and then annually 5 years later. Okay. Coming on to the management of high risk and low volume meds. This is a bit complicated. Now there can be various possibilities. Right from primary lesion can be right from T1B to T2, T3, or T4. Okay. All of this are included in the high risk group. Once you get this histology, you look at the lymph nodes. What are the three possibilities? You can have bilateral negative groins, that is non-palpable groins. You can have one side unilateral positive. Okay. And but the lymph nodes are less than 4 centimeter. Okay. And it is mobile. And the third possibility is that it is a bilateral positive lymph node, bilateral palpable groin, again less than 4 centimeter and mobile. So if it is non-mobile, that is, it is a fixed lymph node or more than 4 centimeter, then that becomes high high volume meds, and for that neoadjuvant chemotherapy works. There is a separate flowchart for that. Okay, so here we are considering only mobile lymph nodes and less than 4 centimeters. So let's go on to bilateral negative. What if you have a bilateral negative groin in a patient who has a primary tumor of T1B to T4? What do you do? Okay, so what do? We do a bilateral superficial inguinal dissection. Obviously, when you do a bilateral superficial inguinal dissection, this should be done in the presence of frozen section. So you need to have a frozen section facility in your setup, so that when you do a superficial inguinal dissection, you send the lymph nodes. If they are positive, you do a deep and the pelvic node on that side. Okay. So we'll concentrate on this aspect. Don't look at the other, don't look at this part. Let us concentrate here. So suppose you do a frozen section, and let's say the frozen section is negative, both sides, then you observe. But suppose the frozen section is positive for one side, then on that side, you do a deep inguinal lymph node dissection and a pelvic lymph node dissection also. So you complete the dissection on that side. Okay. And if bilateral positive, you do a bilateral bilateral complete deep, that is deep inguinal, deep and super and pelvic lymph node dissection also. This was about bilateral negative groins. This is such an important, such an important message it is giving, that even in bilateral negative groins, you need to do superficial inguinal lymph node dissection, do frozen, because there is still a chance of lymph node involvement. Okay, I'll tell you the percentage. The percentage is close to 25%. Okay, there is a chance of 25 in 25% cases, even though lymph nodes are like, if you take 100 patients having negative groins, or 25% will have micrometastasis to the inguinal lymph nodes. So there is no way out. You need to do a, uh, superficial inguinal dissection for all these. There is no way out. I mean, there is no way out in terms of the options. There are a few other options which will come to them later, but there is no way out. No way out to escape this fact. So you have to deal with this, and you have to challenge it head on. Whereas in the low risk group, okay, whereas in the low risk group, the chance of involvement is 0 to 16%. 16% is highest, and that is considered. This percentage is considered too less to opt for groin dissection, and hence they opt for watchful waiting. This is how so many randomized control trials. This is what the so many randomized control trials over so many years have concluded. Now coming to the second picture, where if suppose it is a unilateral positive mobile group of lymph nodes on one side, and these are less than 4 centimeter, and these are not fixed mobile. What do? We do an ipsilateral inguinal, that is superficial deep and pelvic lymph node dissection, with contralateral superficial inguinal dissection. Okay. Now what else? Suppose you like, what next do you do? You have to assess. That is, if this contralateral superficial inguinal nodes are positive, then you have to complete the dissection on that side. But if negative, you observe. Once you do all this, you follow it up with adjuvant therapy. Similarly, here also, I forgot to mention, you have to follow it with adjuvant therapy based on what you find in the lymph nodes. We'll come to that later. And finally, if you have a bilateral positive lymph nodes, you can do FNAC. Okay, you can do a bilateral dissection also, but it is better to do an FNAC. If FNAC is negative, you can follow a bilateral negative algorithm. What is bilateral negative algorithm? This one. Okay, you do a bilateral superficial, send them for frozen, check, and then do a, that's whatever is positive, you do a ipsilateral deep and pelvic. Whereas if it is positive, then there are two options. Either you go for a bilateral inguinal dissection, ilioinguinal dissection, which in my opinion is too radical and highly, not highly, but definitely a lot of morbidity is involved and a lot of complications, because if you do a bilateral ilioinguinal, that is superficial deep and pelvic, it's a huge surgery and in the groin, and might lead to a lot of complications. So my opinion would be to go for a neoadjuvant, but these are both options. For as far as opinion doesn't matter for MCQs and for exam, what you need to know is what can be done. So if bilateral are positive, if bilateral lymph nodes are positive, you can do a bilateral ilioinguinal dissection upfront, or you give a neoadjuvant and then do a ilioinguinal dissection followed by adjuvant. Okay. This is very important, and this is the crux of the entire chapter. Uh, let's see if we have any questions. Sorry. All right, we don't have any questions as of now. Sorry. Continue. So before we go for inguinal lymph node dissection, you give 4 weeks of antibiotics. Okay, because there can be some amount of lymphadenitis which we need to suppress. if you have a palpable lymph node, okay, then 30 to 50% of these nodes are maybe due to inflammatory conditions and not due to meds. Okay, this is what your book says. Also, if you delay inguinal lymph node dissection, okay, and delay more than 6 weeks, that is late inguinal lymph node dissection and positive node disease are significant factors for recurrence and decreased survival. So you should not delay it more. 4 weeks, you give antibiotics and then you do a surgery. And generally, you get staph, diphtheroids, and peptostreptococcus. You can start anticoagulants. You better to give low molecular weight heparin. And following the surgery, early ambulation to avoid DVT. And preoperatively, you do a bowel cleansing also. Coming to the same diagram, what we have added here is the markings. Okay. So what are these markings? So I want you to understand the concept of inguinal lymph node dissection, superficial inguinal lymph node dissection, modified inguinal lymph node dissection. Okay. You need to separate them. You need to be clear about what is what. Starting with the most radical of all, that is ilioinguinal lymph node dissection. All right. Ilioinguinal, that is, you remove the iliac lymph nodes, that is the pelvic lymph nodes, as well as the inguinal lymph nodes. That is the most radical of all. And all the surgeries, because this is the gold standard, I won't say gold standard, but this is the standard surgery. This is the standard surgery, and all the other surgeries will be compared, have been compared to this. Okay, the open radical inguinal lymph node dissection. This is the main surgery. What are the boundaries of this dissection? So as you can see, it starts from the ASIS somewhere here, and it goes on medially till here, and downwards is the pubic tubercle and above the inguinal ligament, and downwards up to the beyond the fossa ovalis. Okay, this is the boundary of radical, and as you can see, this is the modified, which has smaller boundaries. So what are the boundaries? Boundaries are, you draw a line from the ASIS, okay, to the external ring, that is near the pubic tubercle, just some 2 centimeter near the pubic tubercle, and then laterally 20 centimeter down and 15 centimeter down from the pubic tubercle, wherever it meets. So this triangle or this area is your area of dissection in inguinal lymph node dissection. That is a radical inguinal lymph node dissection or inguinal lymph node dissection. As you can see here, it will include the saphenous vein also and the femoral vein. It will include all this area. Okay, it will be beyond the fossa ovalis, which will be somewhere here. Now, where do you do a inguinal lymph node dissection? It is done for patients who have lymph nodes less than 4 centimeter with the low risk primary lesion that are positive after FNA or excisional biopsy, or that are high risk primary lesions. Okay. This is actually high. Sorry, I don't know why. I need to check this. I'm sorry, but I'm sure this is what is given in your book. Okay, fine. We can move ahead. And is also indicated for lymph nodes more than 4 centimeter that are mobile and positive for malignancy after percutaneous biopsy. So this is where inguinal lymph node dissection is done. Now we come to superficial inguinal lymph node dissection. So what I want to tell you is, what do you do here? You remove all the lymph nodes, superficial and deep, in inguinal lymph node dissection. Okay, and this is generally combined with an iliac dissection also. So the incision is such that you can keep a kind of a Z incision. So you do this and you extend it upwards and do an iliac, you can extend it upwards like this, or you can have an incision like this and you can remove the iliac lymph nodes also. Okay, so this is the standard inguinal dissection with which the superficial and the modified will be compared. So what is a superficial inguinal lymph node dissection? Superficial inguinal lymph node dissection, as the name says, involves only removal of the superficial group of lymph nodes. Okay, that is above the fascia lata. It will follow the same template as the modified inguinal lymph node dissection. We'll come to what is the template. As we said, when you do a superficial lymph node dissection, you need to have intraocclusion section, and if positive, you do a deep resection also. What is the rationale? As we said, there is no skip meds in penile carcinoma. So if the superficial lymph nodes are positive, then they are negative, then there is no involvement of the deep lymph nodes. That is kind of that is what is accepted. So that is the rationale behind doing a superficial inguinal lymph node dissection, and this is done in case of negative groin. Please remember, it is done in case of negative groin. So what is the template? The template is adductor longus muscle medially, femoral artery laterally, inguinal ligament superiorly, and the fossa ovalis inferiorly. I have any idea why I have made this red? It's a kind of a stupid question. I'll tell you why. The reason is, in your book, that is in Campbell's Urology, they have said abductor longus, AB, but to my knowledge, no such muscle exists in the body. There is no abductor longus muscle. Okay, so there is only an adductor longus, and that is what is only situated medially. So medially, the boundary is adductor longus, and femoral artery laterally, inguinal ligament superiorly, and the fossa ovalis inferiorly. All these are potential MCQs. This is the same template which is to use in modified inguinal lymph node dissection. Okay. Now we come to modified inguinal lymph node dissection. So suppose you have a negative groin. Okay, you have a negative groin, and the patient is patient can be, let's say, T1B or T2 or something. You can do a superficial inguinal lymph node dissection. You can also do a modified inguinal lymph node dissection. The only aspect of modified is it is just more like, it is a bit more than superficial, because you will involve a few you will go beyond the deep, you will go beyond the facial lata. You will go deep to the facial lata also, and it will involve the deep lymph nodes also. But it is not as radical as inguinal or the radical inguinal lymph node dissection. And that is why it is called as modified inguinal lymph node dissection. When you say modified, it is modified from the inguinal lymph node dissection. Okay, as the name suggests, it is not to be compared with superficial. Please don't make this mistake, guys. Okay, it is an alternate to inguinal lymph node dissection. It is not an alternate, or it is not compared to superficial inguinal lymph node dissection. All the points mentioned here will be in comparison with inguinal lymph node dissection. Who proposed this? Catalona. Okay. For what purpose? To provide proper diagnostic and therapeutic benefit, along with reducing the morbidity. So as compared to the inguinal lymph node dissection, which I discussed earlier, which one? This one. This one. This bigger outline. As compared to this one, that is a modified inguinal lymph node dissection, has shorter skin incision, okay, limited by laterally by femoral artery, and does not go caudally beyond the fossa. We preserve the saphenous vein here, and we do not transpose the sartorius muscle. So that brings us to, what do you do in deep? So in deep, or what do you do in inguinal or the radical inguinal lymph node dissection? We have we need to sacrifice the saphenous vein. Okay, this sartorius muscle needs to be transposed, and it might be required to be suture it to the inguinal ligament. So it becomes a kind of a big, very radical surgery. So if you can avoid this, it can uh, be beneficial to the patient. Now here comes the catch. Suppose you do a modified inguinal lymph node dissection. Okay, suppose you remove all the lymph nodes that are present here, and the lymph nodes are positive. Then the lymph nodes are positive, then that resection has to be converted into an ilioinguinal lymph node dissection. So it again becomes a radical. So this is just a staging method. It is alternate to superficial inguinal lymph node dissection, but its comparison is done with radical. Why? Because it is closer to the radical surgery, but it is still not a radical surgery. Only if the lymph nodes are negative, you can close this incision down. If suppose lymph nodes are positive, then you have to remove the lymph nodes that might have been left here, might have been left here, might have been left here, all those things. Okay. So we remove all the superficial and deep lymph nodes within the area described, and there is still a false positive rate of up to 5.5%. And complications ranging from infection, skin necrosis, lymphedema, seroma, and lymphocele might occur. Now, which patient, you might get a question as to, we need to understand, if suppose there is a positive groin, we do a lymph node dissection, we still need to know which patients will do better. So there is a high cure rate in surgically treated patients in those who have no more than 2 positive inguinal mets, in which the involvement is only on one side, where there is no extranodal extension of cancer. Please remember, if you have revised the class which I took earlier, or you have gone through the TNM classification again, then extranodal extension comes in PN3. Okay, so that becomes a higher stage. So if there is no extranodal extension, it is always better. And absence of pelvic mets. If presence of pelvic mets is also PN3, pathological N3. So all this will have associated with higher cure rate. The moment anything of this is present, it becomes the survival, the 5-year survival reduces. And if you have any of these, or suppose you do a resection and then you have any of these positive, then it is better to go for an adjuvant therapy. Or if you know upfront, as we saw in that chart. Okay, as we saw in that chart. Which chart? This one. If you have upfront 2 positive, both bilateral groin positive, it is better to offer neoadjuvant. This was what I was talking about. So we spoke about the radical inguinal lymph node dissection, the superficial inguinal lymph node dissection, the modified inguinal lymph node dissection. When you compare the modified to the radical, what are the advantages? That it has a shorter incision, we do not sacrifice the saphenous vein, we do not transpose the sartorius muscle. The laterally you don't go beyond the femoral artery. Medially you don't like medially it's sort of similar boundary that is near the adductor longus, but caudally you don't go beyond the fossa valis. So these are all potential MCQs. This was what we need to know. This is what are the procedures. Now we have to apply them. Okay, we'll start their application. So suppose you have a non-palpable inguinal adenopathy. So I mean, uh, you have a tumor with no inguinal palpable groin. Okay, still 25% will have lymphatic mets. 25%. That's like quite a number which you can't miss, at least in oncology. And delay in treatment of inguinal lymph nodes of more than 12 weeks negatively affects survival. This 12 weeks is also there in uh, uh, bladder cancer. So it is it has been conventionally said that one should not delay radical cystectomy more than 12 weeks from diagnosis of bladder cancer because it negatively affects the survival. It is unique. Inguinal lymph node dissection is unique that it provides staging as well as treatment because the final staging will be based on the microscopic examination or the pathological examination of the lymph node. So it will be staging as well as treatment. However, inguinal lymph node dissection is associated with high morbidity and high complication rates. Okay, so all non-palpable inguinal lymph node, if you are going to do an inguinal lymph node dissection, you are going to offer all patients, that is 100% patients will have to bear all this complication of skin necrosis and lymphocyl and seroma and all that. And you will be over treating 70% because only 25 to 30% are positive. 70% cases, you are doing an inguinal lymph node or even a bilateral superficial inguinal lymph node dissection. It is too much. So this gave rise to alternate concepts, alternate concepts to avoid lymph node dissection, or not to exactly avoid, but to make sure whether the groin is involved or not. So before heading on to the lymph node dissection, there are some other things which can be done so that if we know for sure that the lymph nodes are positive, we can positive for mets, then we go on for a lymphadenectomy. Otherwise, we can stop there. So, which are those techniques? One of those techniques that was proposed by Cabana was sentinel lymph node biopsy, where he said that the superior medial group in the a single node in the superior medial aspect, okay, superior medial to the saphenofemoral junction, needs to be sampled. But and if this is positive, he said that this is a sentinel group of lymph nodes. So if this is positive, then the groin is positive, then you can do a lymph node dissection on that side. But this procedure was associated with a high false negative rate and hence did not find many takers and not many people followed it. Some of them went to the extent of modifying it, and they did an extended sentinel lymph node biopsy where they extended the they kind of extended the areas, and they did not only do a single, they did not sample only a single lymph node, that is the superior medial group. They involved all the lymph nodes which are enclosed by the inguinal ligament, superior external pudendal vein, and the saphenous vein. So it was an area which they thought of, and if they resected, and then they tried to uh, derive some conclusion. But then this also had a false negative rate of up to 25%. These are all unacceptable rates. Then came another modification, that is medial inguinal node dissection, in which they resected the most medial node to the groin. Okay, most medial node, but still a lateral to pubic tubercle. This had a good false negative rate, I mean good acceptable, around 9%, but the sensitivity was very low. So considering all this, the concept of sentinel lymph node biopsy is not, has been proposed, has been worked out, has been tried, but has not found many takers because of its high false positive rate. This is the technique. So this is the pubic, you palpate the pubic tubercle, and then you go some 2 centimeters below, and then you open this, and then you take the lymph node, and then you send it for biopsy. Then came a very unique kind of procedure name known as DSLNB, dynamic sentinel lymph node biopsy, which was proposed by the Netherlands group. It was proposed somewhere in '94, and they are the Amsterdam group or the Netherlands group are the world leaders, and they when they do it, they have a very good false negative ratio. But so it is to be done only in centers, and only in world class centers, experience centers, and in expert hands. This concept addresses sentinel node resection criticism that the inguinal lymph node lymphatic anatomy is not static. Okay, it it is it is important. Sorry. Yeah. So let's continue. Inclusion of ultrasound. So initially, when this DSLNB concept was derived, okay, at that time, even its sensitivity, or I mean the false negative rate, were close to some 15-18%. But then they started introducing modifications. Some of these modifications are, they started including ultrasound. Okay. Another modification is that of using uh, we'll come to that. Yeah, along with ultrasound, the using smaller sections of lymph nodes. That is, once you take out the lymph node, they take 150 micrometer sections. So you do very small sectioning, and you just don't miss out on any lymph node involvement if present. So they included the ultrasound. What do? You do an ultrasound before the procedure, along with fine needle aspiration of suspicious nodes. Okay. So first you do an ultrasound. On ultrasound, if you see increased size of lymph node, an abnormal shape, a rounded lymph node, or an eccentric cortical hypertrophy, okay, or no echogenic hilum, there is hypoechogenicity of the node compared to the adjacent muscle, lymph node necrosis, or abnormal vascularity on part Doppler. If you have all this, you do an FNAC of that lymph node. Okay. If this lymph node on FNAC is positive, you go for an ipsilateral, you go for an inguinal lymph node dissection, generally bilateral. Yeah, generally bilateral. Okay. So that is how it is. So before even heading on to DSLNB, you do an ultrasound. Okay. If you have on ultrasound all this, you do an FNAC. If on FNAC, do you have suspicion inguinal lymph nodes on ultrasound, you do an FNAC. And if these are positive, then you can avoid doing a DSLNB. You can directly go for a lymph node dissection. So ultrasound basically overcomes the limitation that a few lymphatic channels may appear deformed. Okay, they may appear deformed because of the shift of lymphatic fluid as a consequence of an obstructed node by tumor or necrosis. Okay, this is the theory that was proposed by Riverston. So probably this is what has helped dynamic sentinel lymph node biopsy to reduce its false negative rates. I would like to tell you that this picture has been taken from the old Campbell, but at the same time, I have made two changes, as you can see here and here, with regard to the text, with regards to the text, with regards to the text that has been present in the new Campbell. Okay, so um, I'll come to the changes also. So let's start. So this is the procedure of dynamic sentinel lymph node biopsy. So you have, please remember, it has to be done in negative groin. Okay, before you lose track, dynamic sentinel lymph node biopsy is to be done in negative groin. Sentinel lymph node biopsy is to be done in negative groin, non-palpable groin. There is no role in a palpable groin. So here we have a T1G2 or a T1G3 or a T2 or T3 penile carcinoma and palpably normal groin. That is CN0. You do an ultrasound. If on ultrasound you find all any of these features, then you do an FNAC. If FNAC is positive, then what do? If this FNAC is positive, you do a bilateral inguinal lymph node dissection within 4 weeks. So in the change which has happened from the previous edition to this edition is this was initially ipsilateral. In when I gave the exam, the book I read said ipsilateral, but in the newer book it says bilateral. So be it, no problem. You do a bilateral inguinal lymph node dissection within 4 weeks. So let's say if it is negative, okay, you FNAC is negative, then what do? Then you do a lymphoscintigraphy. So you in what is lymphoscintigraphy? Lymphoscintigraphy is injection of 0.3 to 0.4 ml of nanocolloid, technetium 99 nanocolloid around the base of the penis. Okay, around you, or you can insert around the base of around the tumor, circumferentially around the tumor. This can be done 4 hours prior to the surgery, or you can do 1 day before. So suppose today the patient is posted at 7 a.m., you can do 1 day before. That is yesterday. And after this, once you inject all this, then location of detected sentinel lymph nodes is marked and depth is gauged. Okay, so once you inject this nanocolloid, you have to see the sentinel lymph nodes and look for them, and you try to make an assessment of the depth. Once the patient is in the operating room and anesthesia is given, then you add the isosulfan blue dye. So in even addition of isosulfan blue, in addition to the technetium nanocolloid, has increased its sensitivity, reduce the false negative rates of this procedure. So small changes that have happened over time, small modifications that have happened over time, has led to the this procedure becoming more and more sensitive. So once you patient is in the anesthesia, under anesthesia, then you intradermally around the proximal penile shaft, you inject 1 ml of isosulfan blue dye. And then you make small inguinal incisions. Okay, you make small inguinal incisions based on where gamma ray activity is noted by using a gamma probe. Okay, so you have two dyes now. You have uh, uh, one nanocolloid which has been injected around the tumor. So from wherever the tumor goes or wherever the lymph nodes are going, the nanocolloid will go, and this can be picked up using the gamma probe, and you even have a blue colored dye which can be seen with naked eye. And then you, wherever this goes, you do a sentinel node biopsy. And following this, another thing that was added was you if you have no, suppose you have finished removing all those nodes that have radioactivity and those are blue in color, then you again continue doing the dissection, you do palpation, and you explore the wound too. And if you see there are some suspicious nodes by naked eye, you remove them. Okay, you record the residual radioactive count, make a note of it, and send whatever nodes you have removed for biopsy. And these are embedded in paraffin and then serially sectioned 150 micrometers intervals, and then you use standard stains and IHC, which if negative, you follow up with interval examinations and ultrasound. If these nodes are positive, then again the same thing, you go for a bilateral inguinal lymph node dissection. Again, their change has happened in this edition. From 2 mm, this has become 150 micrometer. Here, if you can see behind it is written 2 mm. So these are two major changes. When changes happen, they become potential questions. So sectioning of pathology slides is done at 150 micrometer. And the technique is, as I said, you do an ultrasound. If suspicion nodes are found, you do an FNAC. As I said initially, when the procedure started in '94, and when the initial results came in, their trials suggested a false negative rate of 19.2%, which was not great actually speaking. But with all these additions of intra-op exploration of groin, pre-op FNAB if ultrasound is positive, more extensive pathological review using a central pathologist and a more defined kind of protocol where initially it was 2 mm, now it is 150 micrometer, and an ultrasound guided exploration. All this combined, the false negative rate has reduced to 4.8%, which is commendable. But still, this procedure is not available everywhere. The Netherlands group has the best experience, and it is best done by them. And I don't know if anyone even does it in India. What do you do? Uh, After you do a DSNB. So let's say DSNB is negative, then you do you follow up after every 2 months for the first 2 years, every 3 months for the third year, every 6 months for till fifth year. Because and the initial 2 years it is so rigid that is 2 monthly for the first 2 years because most recurrences are in the first 2 years. This I think I mentioned a few slides back also. So how can we miss out on something more minimally invasive and so exciting as a robot or a lab? Okay, so uh, endoscopic or laparoscopic and robotic inguinal lymphadenectomy has a potential of removal of inguinal lymph nodes with reduced morbidity because of its minimally invasive nature. So what do? You create a border. You create a new peritoneum here. Okay, create a new peritoneum here. Yeah, you create a new peritoneum here, and it is also known as VEIL, VEIL, video endoscopic inguinal lymph node dissection. So VEIL technique or robotic technique or an endoscopic technique, whatever. So what are the landmarks? So here laterally it is the ASIS, and from the ASIS the medial border of sartorius, and medially is the lateral border of reductor longus, superior is the inguinal ligament, and uh, from the inguinal ligament, midpoint of inguinal ligament 20 centimeter down is the camera port, straight. That is, this is a 12 mm port, and the other ports are situated 8 mm on the sides and one port in the middle. So this is how whale technique is done. It's quite good actually, and I have seen a few, and hoping to do one of them in the future. So what do you do exactly? So you make a 2 centimeter incision below the inferior aspect of the femoral triangle, 25 centimeter below the inguinal ligament. Here it is here. Okay, so you make all these markings, and then you make an incision here, and then using your finger you create a blunt area that is above the scarpa's fascia, and then uh, finger sweeping dissection is done, and a flap is developed. Okay, and this flap is created using the camera, so using this telescope. So first you insert your finger, raise the flap a bit, and obviously your finger can go only to till a certain depth, and then in the same aspect you keep on doing the sweeping movements using the telescope, and you go inwards, and then you insufflate. This insufflation is done at around 25 millimeter of mercury, and a new peritoneum is created above the scarpa's fascia. And then what you do is you do a dissection of the lymph node. You can very well see this is the inguinal ligament, and this is the femoral vein, this is the femoral artery, and these are the lymph nodes here, and this is a saphenous vein. So this, as you can see here, this is this is the superficial package of lymph node that is being removed. Okay, and here the saphenous vein is being preserved. He is not cutting this saphenous vein, and then this, along with in the next picture, what we can see that he is going more medial to it, and this is probably the deep lymph node, and this is the Cloquet node. Okay, so So this here is the fascia lata. This here is the fascia lata, and now he has gone deep to it. So this becomes this more medial. So probably this is the clocked group of lymph node because it is medial to the femoral vein. And this will be the final picture. So if you do an open dissection or any open inguinal lymph node dissection or a traditional one, then it will look like this. Here it will have such small holes. That said, uh, it this is a bit more morbid. This because of its minimally invasive nature, it's better. And these are the use of robotics and inguinal lymph node dissection using the. So you have Da Vinci SI, XI, and this is given in a textbook. You can just have a look. Not much to discuss. Maybe a few points. What are the difference between SI and XI? So both have same number of arms. That is four arms. But with XI, the arms are thinner. The arms are you can use the camera with any of the arm. Well, that is a big advantage because sometimes because of the cluttering of at the console side at the bedside of the patient, in XI you might have in SI you might have limitations, but in XI you can use the camera with any of the port. That is one big advantage. And then you have newer system, newer assemblies, and some more additional advantage, which is some more extra degree of movements and all that. But mainly the point of using the camera and the thinner instruments and a few more technical aspects like using the ICG and all those things are better in the XI system. So that brings us to the idea of something which I mentioned already. What is positive? What is radical inguinal lymph node dissection? Radical inguinal lymph node dissection is done upfront in patients who have a palpable inguinal lymph node or positive inguinal lymph nodes. So if the patient is having a positive groin on one side, you do a radical inguinal, that is, you do a superficial, you do a deep, as well as the iliac lymph node dissection on that side, and the contralateral superficial with a frozen section of that side. Okay. So radical is indicated for patients with palpable positive lymph nodes and may be curative if disease limited to inguinal lymph nodes. Unilateral limited metastasis without extranodal extension of cancer or pelvic mets are potentially curable. So this is what they said, that when there are no external nodal extension, when it is unilaterally involved, when there are not more than two nodes are present, and when it is not bilateral, all these have a better prognosis. Okay. This slide is repeated on purpose because I wanted to stress upon the importance of knowing the boundaries of inguinal lymph node dissection, that is from the ASIS to the external inguinal ligament, and 20 centimeter from the ASIS down, 15 centimeter from the PVT burger down, and then this area is resected in the inguinal lymph node dissection. This is just what do you call it, the representative diagram of the what do you do in inguinal lymph node dissection. Is here you so suppose this is a metastatic lesion, you make an incision covering it, and here he's tying the saphenous vein, as you can see here, and then he's doing a deep resection, and here you can see all the structures, and this will be the final outcome. One maneuver has been described known as the Barofsky maneuver. That is, in the inguinal lymph node dissection, when you mobilize the sartorius from this ASIS and transpose it, okay, medially to cover the femoral vessel, it is known as the Barofsky maneuver. This can be a potential MCQ. Uh, this muscle is sutured to the inguinal ligament. Okay. Now this picture is from the old book. This picture is not there in the new book. So what they say is, suppose what are the various options or the various incisions for inguinofemoral lymph node dissection. So this if you do a if you are doing a bilateral pelvic lymph node dissection, you can do a midline. If you are doing a uh, uh, mm, uh, sorry, if you are doing a unilateral inguinal and iliac lymph node dissection, you can use this, and if you are doing only an inguinal, you can use this, and you can use this technique also. so that you can cover both the this is the inguinal lymph nodes and this is the iliac lymph nodes. Oh, this also we have gone through. Coming to, so what we have covered is both the negative groin and the palpable groin. If it is a palpable groin, if it is a palpable groin, no role of sentinel lymph node and then dynamic sentinel lymph node and all that. Okay, no role. If it is a palpable groin, there is no role of staging also. There is no role of superficial inguinal lymph node dissection or modified inguinal. No, you have to do an radical inguinal lymph node dissection, which includes the superficial, deep, and the iliac group on that side. And on the opposite side, you do a superficial inguinal lymph node dissection with the frozen. So, coming to adjuvant, where does adjuvant fit into our uh, our all this here? So once you remove the lymph nodes and you have certain factors like extranodal extension, or you have bilateral lymph nodes, or you have more than two lymph nodes positive, it is better to offer them adjuvant therapy. Okay, so that is all the role of adjuvant therapy. Uh, so it can increase survival compared with surgery, but obviously chemo is toxic. And as I said, it is advisable when there are two or more nodes, extranodal extension or pelvic nodes. Okay. Now that said, all this was limited to patients who can be potential candidate for cure, but uh, there are some patients who have an ulcerative inguinal lymph node or a very big mass, which if not resected, patient might have a very poor quality of life. And those patients, you very well know that removing the lymph nodes will not be curative. But there are certain reasons why you might offer them to do palliative resection, because these lymph nodes can infiltrate into the femoral artery. It can go into, there can be hemorrhage, and there can be local invasion, and it can ulcerate, infect, and it can really lead to tremendous issues for the patient. So, what local complications can result is infection, abscess, life-threatening vascular hemorrhage, and foul-smelling drainage. So you kind of do the resection of such an infiltrative groin with a purpose to palliate, but not to cure. And in some select cases, you can do an extra anatomical arterial bypass. Okay, so we all know that this is one of the common reasons of death in patients with untreated penile cancer, that is femoral hemorrhage or death of femoral hemorrhage. And so you can do an extra anatomical arterial bypass. I have not seen and I have not heard of also all this. It's all given in the books. But obviously, palliative surgery is not the only way out. You have to offer a multimodal therapy. Patient should be given chemotherapy at least, and because it is basically a systemic disease that you are dealing with. Inguinal lymphdectomy is not without complications: wound infection, cellulitis, necrosis of the graft, wound background, a lot of lymphatic issues, and some rare conditions like DVT, thrombophlebitis, MI, neuropraxias can also happen. If you do a Sartorius flap transposition, it has been found that it is a predictor of wound complications, and hence, in modified inguinal lymph node dissection, you have less wound complications, because as compared to the radical inguinal lymph node dissection, because you don't do a Sartorius flap transposition in modified. And if age was also reported to increase the likelihood of major infection complications. Higher the age, higher the infection chances. 5-year survival rate is 75% if no inguinal lymph node mets are found. fire survival rate is 60% if inguinal lymph nodes are mets are found and they are removed surgically. Okay. Then they have given other percentages also, which probably you can try and kind of remember. 75 to 90% fire survival if minimal nodal mets are involved. That is one or two. But it reduces to 25% if more than two inguinal lymph nodes are involved, and it goes to 5 to 10%. That is reduces to 10% if there is extranodal extension of cancer, lymph nodes and larger than 4 centimeter diameter or pelvic lymph nodes. I just put this slide in order to make you understand the importance of lymph nodes in management of penile cancer. So it affects the fire survival so drastically that even if you have less than two lymph nodes involved, the fire survival rate is close to 80%, as you can see here. But as soon as it goes beyond this, it keeps on reducing, and it can reach a low of 5%. So we come to the final flow chart in management of penile cancer, and that is bulky metastatic and distant disease. So we saw if the patient is having negative groin, we do a bilateral superficial inguinal lymph node dissection. If the patient is have a unilateral positive groin but less than 4 centimeter, that side you do a radical and the contralateral superficial. And if your patient is having bilateral positive, then you can offer them neoadjuvant, or you can even do a bilateral inguinal lymph node dissection. But what if the patient is having fixed lymph node? What if the patient is having more than 4 centimeter size lymph node? What if the patient is having pelvic lymph nodes that is detected on pre-op CT scan and pre-op imaging? So fixed node mets, 4 centimeter size pelvic node mets, you go for induction chemotherapy. This chemotherapy is generally platinum based, that is cisplatin. Okay. Once you do chemotherapy, you give chemotherapy, you look at the response. If it is responsive or stable disease, then you add surgery to it. Okay, same. So if it is a unilateral involvement, you do an ipsilateral inguinal lymph node dissection with the pelvic dissection and a contralateral superficial dissection. This is followed by a frozen section, followed by, if positive, you do a similarly superficial deep and pelvic dissection on that side. If on induction chemotherapy the patient still progresses, then it is a poor state. The patient, has very few options. You can kind of add radiation to it, or you can make the patient a part of some clinical trial that might be testing some newer checkpoint inhibitor or something like that, or you can continue the palliative chemotherapy as it is. And if the patient still progresses, then you refer the patient for hospice referral and make sure that the patient, whatever the patient has the remainder of his life, has at least a peaceful one. So survival in this group of patients with bulky nodes is related to the complete eradication of extensive disease, which cannot be achieved with any of the modalities alone. It has to be multimodal using chemo, uh, chemo, and radiation. And of these, surgery and chemo are generally used. Generally, what do? We give a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, as we saw here. Okay, we saw this. This is we give a neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and then if the patient responds, or even it is a stable disease, we do a surgery. Okay, so neoadjuvant therapy, similarly in breast, just like in breast cancer, can in penile cancer improve surgical resectability and avoids obstacles, which our kind of that the patient has responded to this neoadjuvant, so the patient will respond to post-op chemotherapy also, and it kind of avoid obstacles in the administration of chemo from delays in the post-op healing. But if the patient has prognosis while on chemotherapy, they have poor prognosis. So, previously, the great surgeons used to do something called as a hemipelvectomy, where you used to remove so much, some radical. They remove the entire one side of the pelvis, all the lymph nodes and whatnot. This was done used initially, but not used now. There are some other things which you can do, like endoluminal vascular stents. So these are all palliative measures where you are preventing the tumor erosion, tumor erosion into the vessels. So that is that might be useful. But ultimately, if the patient still progresses, you have to provide a supportive care, and this death generally occurs in less than 1 year. So chemotherapy, role of chemotherapy is either neoadjuvant or adjuvant. Neoadjuvant should be generally cisplatin based. Okay. Optimal therapy remains undefined, but it should be platinum based. One important point is bleomycin was associated with an unacceptable level of toxicity and is not used. It should be discouraged. So that brings us to what are the various combination chemotherapies that can be used. So SWOG, the various groups, the Southwestern Oncology Group suggested the bleomycin, methotrexate, and cisplatin way back in some 90s. And as this bleomycin had a lot of toxicity, so other group, EORTC from Europe, suggested cisplatin and irinotecan, which had good results. And the MD Anderson group from Texas gave cisplatin, ifosfamide, and paclitaxel, which had good results also. And even TPF, that is cisplatin and paclitaxel, and no, the TPF is cisplatin, docetaxel, and 5-fluorouracil. Even these had decent results. So you can use any of these except the BMP one, because bleomycin has unacceptable toxicities. This was generally, this is the neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and adjuvant chemotherapy also is similar. Initially, Milan Cancer Institute gave VBM, vincristine, bleomycin, methotrexate. Then they removed bleomycin, and they had TIP, TPF, and BMP was also a part. But generally, it is the main thing which you should remember, that it is cisplatin based. So as we saw, you give chemotherapy, and if the patient responds to chemotherapy, you do a post, or if even the patient has a stable disease, you do a post chemotherapy surgical resection. Okay. But those who do not respond to chemotherapy, if you do surgery, they might have a long-term survival. But then these patients, I mean, these patients generally will have locorenal recurrence. So their quality of life is affected for sure. So it is, though, for those patients who respond or who have a stable disease, you go for a surgery. But if they don't respond, progress, then it is better to go for chemotherapy, or try some other drug, or a clinical trial, or you do some palliative surgical resection if required. Coming to radiation. So we spoke about chemotherapy. What is the role of radiation in penile cancer? The radiation is something which is not used so much, mm, for various reasons. Uh, Mainly because of its complications, as well as, I mean, if surgical resection is the best, because you remove the tumor and you can have a chance of cure. But those tumors but ultimately you are removing the penis, right? You're removing a part of the penis, and that affects the sexual quality and the quality of life. So if they are low risk lesions, maybe radiation is an option. So what are the treatment options, or where do you use radiotherapy? Primarily, what kind of radiotherapy you use? You can do EBRT, you can do brachy. Brachy can be low dose or high dose rate interstitial therapy, or you can use a surface mode in brachytherapy. Okay, that is for the primary lesion. And you can also do radiotherapy for inguinal areas. Now, a lot is given in your book regarding radiotherapy, but I'm just consolidating the key points, because it is not something that is practiced in regular in the real world. But we all need to know the indication. So it is a penile preserving approach mainly. Okay, you give radiation, patient preserves the penis, and we expect the patient to have a better quality of life in regards to his sexual, as well as the maturity comfort. So T1 to T2 less than 4 centimeter, you can offer EBRT or brachytherapy. 20% of recurrences occur after 5 years. Okay, so because radiotherapy takes time to act, and generally it can have recurrences even 5 years later. Follow-up might be required, and same as in prostate. Once your radiotherapy fails, you do a salvage prostatectomy or you do a salvage penectomy for recurrent or persistent disease. And what are the side effects? Meatal stenosis and soft tissue ulceration, which are late side effects. Why? Why? Because radiotherapy, how does radiotherapy act? Because it affects the vascular supply of that area. So it will cause this ulceration and strictures and stenosis and all those things. Only benefit is that it avoids chopping off of the penis and can have a good effect on the sexual quality of life. This brings us to the concept of radiotherapy to the inguinal region. In case of inguinal nodes, it is not recommended. It is not recommended as prophylaxis for patients at high risk, unless the patient is not a surgical candidate. So if the patient cannot bear the risk of anesthesia, then maybe you can give radiotherapy. And it can be considered as an adjuvant treatment in those who have more than 2 inguinal lymph nodes or extranodal extension. Okay, so that can be, you can use chemoradiotherapy there. And also sometimes you can use chemoradiotherapy in which patients has fixed nodes or something like that, and an inoperable disease can be made operable. There is an ongoing prospective randomized trial which by the name of IMPACT, and this is the code number of that study, and it is an ongoing study. This has been mentioned in Campbell, and it says that this study is studying the prospective study, and it is studying the role integration of radiotherapy, surgery, and chemotherapy in advanced disease. So this can be a potential MCQ. This brings us to non-squamous penile malignant neoplasms. So this is what is this? This is basal cell carcinoma of the penis, and it is rare. It is generally seen on exposed areas, exposed to sunlight. But if they happen, I mean, if patients do get them, then you have to locally resect such lesions, and local resection is curative. There is something known as pre-malignant fibroepithelioma of Pincus, which is a benign variant of BCC and occurs on the shaft. You do a biopsy and remove it and excision. So BCC is fairly benign, benign in its course, and local excision is curative, unlike other cancers like we'll discuss sarcoma and all those. Coming to melanoma. This is a picture again from Campbell, and these are melanoma, as you know, is superficial spreading and all those things, or so these are, as you can see in the picture, this is a blue, black, or brownish colored lesions that can appear on the glands but don't appear on the prepuce so often. And Clark and Breslow staging is done. Surgery is the primary therapy, and you can even use RT or chemo. We're continuing with melanoma. Stage 1 and stage 2. That is, stage 1 is localized lesion without mets, and stage 2 is mets confined to one regional area. What do? You do primary tumor excision by partial or total penile amputation with bilateral ilioinguinal lymph node section. So it's quite a historically what this was historically done, quite a invasive procedure that was done. And nowadays, what some authors have suggested is just for gland tumors, you do only a partial penectomy. For gland shaft tumors, you do a partial total penectomy. And then if you have a Breslow depth 1 mm or great with ulceration, or with Clark level 4 or 5, you do a bilateral modified inguinal lymph node dissection. And another study which says some checkpoint inhibitor nivolumab may be beneficial in 3B and 4. Just you need to have an idea, because you need to understand that melanoma is more infiltrative, needs surgical therapy, and if higher stage might require to do inguinal lymph node dissection and adjuvant therapy also. So what is this? This is a leiosarcoma of the penis, and mostly sarcomas can be benign or malignant. If they generally in the proximal shaft, these are malignant, and distally, if they are present, then they are benign, and they can be hemangioepithelioma or neural myogenic and fibrous origin. Most commonly, they are of vascular origin if they are malignant, but they are prone to recurrence. Okay, local recurrence occurs, but regional and distal mets are rare. This brings us to another thing known as the extra mammary Paget's disease. This is a Paget's disease of the penis, and this is rare. As you can see, it is like an eczema or a well demarcated erythematous area in this area, and which you need to, if this is a big one, but if it is small, you need to distinguish it from Bowen's disease or CIS. And if you take biopsy from this, it is positive for cytokeratin 7, CEA, but S100 negative. You do a wide local excision, and that is the therapy for it. Then you have something known as adenosquamous carcinoma, in which around 5 to 9 centimeter sized exophytic mass may be seen involved in the glans or the penis, distal shaft of the glans. And if you see under microscope, they are positive for mucin and CEA, and we do a local excision and surveillance. I mean, 1 minute. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. I think I have a missed call from you, but that was long back.
No, no, it's all right.
Sorry. Sorry for the interruption. I'll continue the last few slides to go, and then we have a few questions to do. And then we can have something known as a reticular malignant neoplasm. Uh, so it is actually reticular malignant neoplasm uh, may occur, which may be kind of a leukemia. Leukemia may infiltrate the corpora cavernosa and then cross a prior prism, and it is generally a diffuse large B cell type. Hmm? But generally, primary is rare. It is generally a systemic disease, so you have to look at other sites like lungs and liver and all those things, and then give chemotherapy. Oh, penile mets. So you can have, in the most common presentation of penile mets is priapism. This is a question, most frequent sign. This is MCQ, potential MCQ. And you can have other presentations like penile swelling, nodularity, and ulceration. Uh, Penile mets represent virulent and advanced disease, and generally the primary tumor is recognized, and the prognosis is poor, and the therapy is directed towards local palliation. Thank you so much for your patient listening. This brings us to uh, a few questions which I have made for you guys. Okay, I'll start the polling. You can take a screenshot or a picture so that because you won't be able to go back to the question once I start the poll. So I'm starting the poll now. Hello. Hello, Neha.
Yes, yes.
How do I do a poll? I'm sorry.
Wait.
I guess we have not activated the poll. Not sure why it is not visible. Can we ask in the chat? Can we ask in the chat? Is it fine?
Yeah, okay, so if fine, so I need to paste my questions on the chat, is it?
No, no. Just you need to ask the question in the here, and they can answer in the chat. You can just ask here.
Okay, fine. So this is the question here.
You guys can answer in the chat box.
Yeah, guys, you can answer.
I guess sir, they are answering in the chat.
All right, the answer is C.
Yeah.
Next. A pretty simple one. Answer is A.
You guys can even unmute yourself and answer, but please, like after answering, please again mute yourself.
I'm sorry.
Like even they can unmute themselves and answer if anybody like want to. And I would request you guys to, if you are answering, like unmute, like you are answering after unmuting yourself and mute again, right? Or you can answer in the chat. There's no issue.
D.
Yeah. So we all know that curative resection can be offered in patients with all these. There's nothing like single meds of nothing like this.
D.
Okay. Anybody has another opinion? T1 G1. So T1 G1 also you can offer watchful waiting. Um, there is non-compliant patients is not an indication for watchful waiting. It is they still need to undergo a inguinal staging or inguinal resection or whatever. Straightforward.
A.
So bleomycin is pulmotoxic, and bleomycin comes here as well as in testicular cancer, highly toxic to the chest, and to an extent that in my center, the patients who I mean, I'm not really sure about the how to be used, but I am, it is generally not even given to patients who smoke, because even though chest is clear, but because of smoking, chronic bronchitis, and other things, don't give bleomycin.
C.
Yeah, C. So this was just a sort of revision. These questions don't mean anything. That was all from my side. Thank you for attending this lecture. If you have any questions, you can contact me. This can save the screenshot here. You can message me. I would love to have your feedback, and because we are all here to learn, and I hope you guys do great in your exams. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We loved your session. It was an amazing session. And I request all the students to unmute themselves and ask the doubts if they have, or else you can ask on our WhatsApp group. Sir is available there also. Okay, so thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think no one has any doubts. So can we end this lecture?
Yes, Neha, we can.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.